música de fondo, ¿no? Espera. En Instagram está. Ahí no voy a meter la intro otra vez. No estamos para... Hi everyone, welcome to this surprise live session that we are putting together. My name is Oscar and I'm here with Marina.
Hi everyone.
And for the next half an hour, 60 minutes, we're going to discuss the news related to Donald Trump's inauguration. And I apologize for the slight delay that we had in setting up this call. In fact, we are still dealing with a few technical issues, to be very honest with all of you. For example, today we will not able to easily display your comments when we get to Q&A. We will have a brief Q&A, but we will not be able to have this nice comment display. So Marina will have to arrange some magic for us to see the comments. We will be able to see them, but it's not going to be easy for her to put together, okay? So what we are going to do is first let me know if you are hearing everything correctly. And once I get that confirmation, we're going to get started with the recent developments that we have for legal immigration stemming from Donald Trump's first hours in office. As you know, Donald Trump was inaugurated on January 20th. That was just a few hours ago. But you also know, and we knew, that he was going to take a lot of action on the first day, a lot of executive orders and memoranda that would deal with immigration and other topics. And here we're not going to discuss anything related to deportations and all these issues with undocumented migrants. Maybe we'll touch on it slightly, but not in depth, because as you know, in this channel we really focus on merit-based green cards like EB-20W, EB-1A. I know many of you who are watching are already in the US with non-immigrant visas, so we're going to touch on 3 of those executive actions that Donald Trump issued in his first hours in office, and because those 3 can have implications on those of you who are hoping to immigrate to the US or are already in the US with some sort of visa, be it student visa, an F visa, a J visa for exchange students or exchange scholars, working visa, you name it, even tourist visa, okay? So we're going to get started, and then later we're going to take a few questions, and hopefully Marina will figure out how to deal with the technical problems.
Let's see.
we are having. I feel bad. So let me share the screen and take a look at what I want to share with you today. All right, so like I said, we're going to discuss 3 executive actions. I'm going to be sharing the screen. There's no slides today. We put together this live session all of a sudden, and so there's no structure other than I know these 3 things we want to cover, and then we're going to take your own questions and your own comments. I want to also hear your opinions, your anxiety, or your peace of mind if you are happy with the things that are happening. But before getting into the first one, you may have noticed that if you get into the whitehouse.gov website, actually I did it yesterday as the new president was taking the oath, and they already replaced all the content, and now we have the new White House website with the new image for the new government. So if you get into all these executive actions, you can read them all later. I'm going to put the 3 links for these 3 ones that I'm going to cover today, so you can read them at your own pace, and you will find that in the comment section of the YouTube videos. I know we are streaming in YouTube, in our English channel, Spanish channel, and also we are doing that on Instagram. So the first one I want to cover is hiring freeze. And I want to cover it because it can have effects, it will likely have effects on your processing times. If you are hoping to get either a non-immigrant visa or an immigrant visa like EB-20W or EB-1A, this can affect you. Donald Trump issued this presidential action yesterday. And what he is saying is he's ordering a freeze of all federal civilian employees in the executive branch, with exceptions. There are exceptions. Okay, we're going to take a look at what those are. Basically, what they are saying is that no federal civilian position that is vacant at noon on January 20th may be filled, and no new position may be created except as otherwise provided in this memorandum, or the law, of course. And this freeze applies to all executive departments and agencies, regardless of their sources of operational and programmatic funding. This is important because, as you know, USCIS is a fee-funded agency. So when I was going through the executive actions, I thought, well, USCIS is not going to be affected for sure, because 96% of the revenue that USCIS gets comes from you, from the applicants, when you pay your I-140 fees, your asylum program fees, or any type of fee that you pay. Pretty much that's what funds USCIS. So I thought, well, this will not affect it because it doesn't take money from other sources of the government. However, you can read that it does affect agencies that are self-funded. It doesn't apply to military personnel, the armed forces, or positions related to immigration enforcement, national security, or public safety. So when I got to here, I thought, well, maybe we're in the clear because they mention immigration. However, they mention immigration enforcement. And I don't really think that this covers the whole Department of Homeland Security, the whole USCIS, because they are likely talking about enforcement, meaning ICE, which is the agency that deals with things like deportations, which we know are already starting. And so they want to make sure they have personnel for that kind of purpose. But this freeze likely affects USCIS. We'll have to wait and see. I'm cautious and I'm always optimistic in everything. So hopefully it will not affect, but I think there's a fair chance that if somebody retires, if somebody finds a new job and gets out of USCIS, one of those officers that is evaluating your case, that person would not get replaced. And that in turn can cause delays in our processes. And so you can read the whole thing. This applies for 90 days, and they are going to ask this new agency that Elon Musk and this other guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, head, which is the pseudo agency called DOGE. They are going to basically talk with this pseudo agency, is not really a real agency, to see where money can be cut, where positions can be cut. And until they do that initial job, this hiring freeze will remain, or until Donald Trump decides they want to revoke it, which is a real possibility. So this is action number one, okay? Hiring freeze that could affect different processes. If you are also in a different process, for example, a standard green card process that needs labor certification, this could also affect the Department of Labor, which deals with terms, okay? So there are many ways this could affect a little bit the processing times of different agencies. The second one I want to cover is one that has been discussed extensively, and that is birthright citizenship. It has been discussed in the last months because Donald Trump already signaled that he wanted to end birthright citizenship, which means that if you are born in the US, you are an American citizen. This has been the case for decades and decades, and now Donald Trump wants to change this. And so he issued this executive order entitled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. However, as you probably know, I want to bring a little bit of relaxation here and to lower the anxiety. This, of course, could affect potentially immigrants, because imagine a couple of Indian non-immigrants, Indians working with an H visa, for example, or European students on an F visa in the US. you name it. I mean, any case of non-immigrant work or studies in the US, you are a couple in that situation and you have children, you have a child. What this executive order is proposing is that in 1 month from now, that child would not be American, even if it is born in the United States, which is, again, unlike what has been happening. That's why I'm bringing it here, because this affects legal immigrants, right? A student on an F visa is a person who is legally in the United States. So the good news here is that this is likely not to hold, okay? This is likely to be repealed by court. And before I get a little bit deeper into this, we're going to watch a few seconds of the news where they were explaining this issue.
Birthright. That's a big one.
Another controversial executive order signed is focused on ending birthright citizenship to children of undocumented immigrants.
It's ridiculous. We're the only country in the world that does this with birthright, as you know.
The birthright citizenship means anyone born in the United States automatically becomes an American citizen, and it's protected by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
Well, a couple of things here. One thing that is wrong, the news got wrong, is that this is not only affecting undocumented immigrants. You can read the whole thing and you will find how they are actually saying that, for example, when the person's mother's presence in the US at the time of said person's birth was lawful but temporary, such as visiting the US under the visa waiver program, or student, or work, or tourist, and the father is not a US citizen or lawful permanent, then that person will not get automatic citizenship. So it doesn't only target so-called illegal immigrants, it would affect all immigrants in the US, unless they are married with a lawful permanent resident or a US citizen. The good news, like I was saying, is that this is likely to be repealed in courts. And before I get into that, another thing that was wrong in that news clip, but is not on the news reporters, is Donald Trump was lying when he said that this is the only country that has this kind of birthright citizenship. If you do a simple Google search, you will find more than 30 countries. Here, they are depicted by the dark blue color, where the same type of law applies. Okay, there are other countries in lighter blue where they have restricted versions of that kind of birthright citizenship, but this is to show that this person doesn't always say the truth, and that is a very mild way of putting things. Now, if you go a little bit deeper into this, you will see that this has been discussed. Here I have a BBC article. They explain the history of this type of thing. This is in the Constitution, okay? This is in the 14th Amendment of the United States, which says all persons born or naturalized in the US and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So naturally, by using an executive order, the president alone cannot change. Imagine, if they cannot change a law, how can they change the Constitution? They can't. So this has already been put into the court system. I think the ACLU has already sued. More will follow. I heard that also the Attorney General of California is suing. So this is going to go to the Supreme Court very, very rapidly. And we are likely to get this repealed. That we have to see, okay? There is a system, and we are going to see how the system works. In theory, for this to be changed, they would need to put together a constitutional amendment that, like the BBC says here, that would require 2/3 of the House of Representatives and Senate and the approval of 3/4 of the United States states. Okay, so It's not trivial at all. So I don't think this is going to go forward. And I wanted to also share this with you and those of you who are in the US and student visas, and maybe you are already pregnant and you are freaking out. I would say let's be a little bit calm and see where things are going next. Okay. So the last one I want to share with you is a little bit more nuanced, and maybe it hasn't been discussed that much. And it's called Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats. And you are going to have to read through it because it's quite tedious, but even though this is focusing a lot on national security and terrorism, it really makes broad assertions, and it relates to the immigration system, legal immigration system also. So basically, it gives more powers of review to the government. It starts saying that the US needs to protect the citizens against terrorists and other threats, but it quickly transitions into immigration. It says, to protect the Americans, the US must be vigilant during the visa issuance process to ensure that those aliens approved for admission into the US don't intend to harm Americans or our national interests. Importantly, the US must identify them before their admissions or entry into the US. And so they need to also make sure that people already present in the US do not bear hostile attitudes, and I want you to listen to this, hostile attitudes toward its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles, and do not advocate for aid or support designated foreign terrorists or other threats to our national security. So I wanted to bring this up because this will allow these agencies and the consulates and the embassies to really vet people in a very rigorous way, which, you know, we could all agree that that is not a problem, but the broad definitions they are giving, and they include things like culture, institutions, founding principles, they put a lot of power into these officers' hands to issue discretionary and final, if you are in an embassy process, final decisions. And they go on and on about this, enhanced vetting and screening across agencies, and they basically direct these agencies to evaluate cases, and again, listen to this, to the maximum degree possible, okay? So this is another type of order that can increase processing times, because now think, if the president is telling the agencies, you really need to scrutinize people in the maximum degree possible, they are going to take more time, they are going to do more background checks, and they are going to do everything possible to make absolutely sure that people are not posing a threat. And again, getting back to this line, to a bunch of things, not only national security, things like culture, you know, which opens the door to a lot of interpretation, which in the hands of governments, sometimes this kind of interpretation can get a little bit risky, okay, for petitioners, because at the end of the day, many of them will be unprotected. So I'm not going to give you more of a speech here. I just want you to be aware of this. We are going to monitor this type of initiative, which we're likely to see more of them. I have to say that we have not seen an executive order banning travel from certain countries. This is kind of like the equivalent from that 2017 ban. So I'm happy we didn't see that travel ban, which was horrible. But by doing this, they can still exercise a lot of discretion and deny certain cases and slow down, in general, a lot of the visa processes, okay? Now, before we get into our Q&A, I wanted to remind you that if you are an EB2NAW or EB1A petitioner, we have resources at your disposal. We have eb2naw.info and their counterparts in Spanish and Portuguese, where you can find a lot of information about this green card category. And above everything, we recommend that you check out our courses, our flagship EV2NAW course, where we teach you how to put together a do-it-yourself petition for yourself, how to write a cover letter, each of the chapters of that letter, recommendation letters, professional or business plans, you name it. And we have monthly live sessions exclusive for our students in that course. And lately, we issued our new Request for Evidence course, where we teach RFE affected petitioners how to put together an effective response for an RFE. And if you are in EV1, we have EV1greencard.info, so we got you covered. And we have a similar website, and also we have a similar course teaching you how to put together a do-it-yourself petition, so you can save thousands of dollars if you don't want to hire a lawyer, which is your decision, of course. And now we are going to go to Q&A. All right, so we're going to go to Q&A now.
Yes.
I think Marina has troubleshot a little bit the problems I created. So let's see if we have a few questions, and then we'll wrap up and go.
So the first is Family Fun that says, what impact could the Trump administration have on the EV2NAW program? Could Donald Trump potentially cancel the NAW program?
So the NAW program, as I understand, is a little bit more vulnerable than, let's say, the EV1A. The EV1A is written in the regulation, so it's harder to get rid of. They can still do that kind of action if they go through Congress, of course. If they go through Congress, they could do pretty much anything, okay, if they get the majority. But that's not super easy also because the majority is not that huge. NAW is a bit more vulnerable. It's based on precedent decisions like the matter of Danazar, but I am not deeply worried. Theoretically, they are not against these types of programs, even though in this episode I'm showing you how even if they aren't, they still do things that harm legal immigrants. But I don't think in the short term we are going to see any huge change to these two programs, other than adjudication standards, which could get a little bit harder.
And next one is Boss Opinion. Is Trump's order for federal workers going back into office going to speed up adjudication?
I don't think so. To be honest, I want to be very transparent. I don't know exactly what is the percentage of USCIS officers that adjudicate cases that work in an office versus remotely. My understanding is that mostly they do it in offices anyway. But I mean, remote work doesn't mean that people are not working also. If you work in a company, you are probably familiar with remote work. You may have your favorable or unfavorable opinion, but it doesn't mean that automatically things will just flow magically. But again, in this case, I think officers that deal with this are probably in offices anyway.
And Family Fun again, why are you currently giving a higher RFE in EV2NAW? What is the success rate after receiving an RFE?
I'm not sure the first part. You're saying, am I giving a higher RFE in EV2NAW? I guess you mean the government, because I don't give RFEs. If I could, I would erase RFEs. We are seeing higher RFEs. Donald Trump just started. Today is day 1.5 in office. We are not going to blame him for the higher RFEs that happened under Biden in the last year. So that's the reality. Why do I say that happens? Because we have statistics. We don't have statistics on number of requests for evidence in NAW issued, but we have statistics on approvals and denials. All the denials went through an RFE process, and there are more denials lately. Therefore, we know that there's more RFEs. Okay. what is the success rate after receiving an RFE? Like I was saying, there's no statistics on that. I wish we had them, and I would give them to you. I could give you my anecdotal observations, but I don't want to do that because it's not very responsible to just tell you a number without backing it up with anything.
Next one is Jamie. I was about to file my EB1, have a strong 7 criteria. Would it have been better to file before, or now I have a better chance? I'm STEM, award publication, media judging, memberships.
Hi, something, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you have 7. That's great. Would have been is a question that really doesn't matter anymore because the reality is that now you are under this government. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, especially from one week to the next. I mean, the officers are still the same people. Yeah, the leadership will quickly be replaced. Is being replaced as we speak. But I don't anticipate a huge change happening. If you have a very strong case, just go for it. Craft a good petition, a solid petition, and that's part of what we do in our course, to teach people how to structure the case. Because even for those who have very strong cases, if they do a terrible job putting together a petition, they may fail.
And as one is boss opinion again. Also, as Trump has deleted Joe Biden's policies, what happens to persons that submit this month and are yet to receive their package at USCIS, but their petition based on Joe's policies?
Joe's policies. I like the familiarity with the former president, Joe Biden. So first of all, Trump has deleted everything pretty much from the White House website, but I think there has to be a way. I think there's some sort of archive where you can still access previous speeches and executive orders. I didn't have time to get into it and see the actual link, but I'm sure there is. I'm sure these people didn't just erase everything, because that was the case with Joe Biden. You could still see Trump's executive orders and all of that. I have the feeling, and by listening to lawyers, that's also the feeling that I get from them, is that there's always these transition points in history where, the officers will have to accept that this can happen, that people would have submitted the case 4 months ago, and it was sitting there, and now they're going to review it in 4 months from now with a different president, different priorities, but my guess is that they will be okay with that. Now, if you're putting together your case right now, my recommendation would be, if it was my case, what I would do is I would prioritize laws of Congress, because those are not revoked by the president. Like we were discussing, he doesn't have the right to do that. He can ask the Congress to change it, but it will take some time. So laws are a good way of showing federal interest on something, especially if it's a bipartisan law. And then maybe you can wait a little bit. At the pace that Donald Trump is issuing executive orders, soon you will find something that you could use potentially. So for certain fields, that will take a few weeks, but that is something that could help someone that is working on the case right now.
And this one is Oliver. He says, hi, I'm from Germany. Is there a possibility to set up a company with an I-140 with approval before consular processing? Do you have any ideas of other than E2 visa?
So we don't do individualized advice in that way. I'm going to reply in general. In general, one can set up a company at any given point. The question is if that person can work in the US or not. So setting up a company and working in the US, those are two different things. Okay, that's the first thing you should keep in mind. So a completely non-US person can still establish a company, let's say in Delaware. The question is if that person can work in the US, and that is dictated by a visa. So for that to happen, the person needs to have a valid visa. Definitely an I-140 doesn't give you the right to work in the US, we know that, but a valid visa would be an H visa or an E visa for an investor, and others. You can consult a lawyer for your specific case, because we're not US lawyers and we cannot give you that sort of advice.
This one is Eduardo. Says, hello, guys. His question is, do you think in this new Trump's administration, the waiting time for EB2 could be reduced as his first administration?
I think it could. I mean, could, yes, because there's always the possibility of a lot of things happening. But then what is likely to happen, in my opinion, is the opposite, because we are seeing already actions that will put more vetting in place, and that means more processing times. They are putting together hiring freezes that, yeah, they are temporary. I mean, they will go away, but all those things affect agencies and affect embassies and consulates. So that doesn't help. But also then you have to differentiate what are you talking about? The processing times, for example, for the I-140 to be processed, or are you talking about the visa bulletin? Because the visa bulletin is likely not to change unless Congress does something dramatic about immigration. So I wouldn't expect anything to happen quickly about the visa bulletin. So don't expect that Trump will come in and all of a sudden, with an executive order, the visa bulletin will move really fast. That's just not going to happen. Processing times in agencies could be affected in a faster way because they don't depend on quotas. But the way things are going and the way we anticipate things could go, I'm not optimistic about that.
And Madhu says, I like to see the answer for the success rate after receiving RFP face purple crying. What adjustments needs to be done under Trump administration?
Yeah, so I would like to see that too. Unfortunately, we don't have that number, and I don't understand your second sentence there. So we're going to.
It's broken.
Huh?
So maybe it's not full.
Maybe it's not full. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is the technical issues. By the way, the face purple crime is an emoji.
Yeah, I know. So NASA says, do the petitions sent last year will follow the old executive orders?
Well, if you already submitted and you use all executive orders, yes, you are using all executive orders. Now, how that will be impacted when they start evaluating those petitions, I already referred to that. I think for a few months they are probably going to be okay with that kind of situation. But again, my advice for people that are working on their cases right now is to use laws approved by Congress or new executive orders whenever possible. Sometimes it's not possible and you may have to use all their initiatives, but make sure in those cases that at least you think that the priorities of the previous administration somewhat align with the new administration.
And my music says, how do you think this will affect the priority dates?
I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's any effect whatsoever right now on visa bulletin and what you call priority dates visa bulletin, because we have a system that is based on quotas, 140,000 give or take employment-based green cards per year, out of which roughly 28%, 28% are EB2 and similar number for EB1. Quota for each country, 7% of the overall green cards. So all of that is law. It's not something that the president can change with the signature in an executive order.
And next one is Rachel. Do you think people should wait before going ahead to fill their petition?
Rachel, glad to see you here. I'm pretty sure you are from the course. I think if you are not in a huge rush and you couldn't figure out a way of doing what I was saying, that you can prioritize these type of laws and maybe executive orders from the previous administration that they are not very controversial with respect to the new administration. Maybe you want to give it a little bit of time and see what Trump issues in terms of speeches and work of their federal agencies and any other executive actions to enrich your arguments. But I would say don't delay things too much because of that also.
And Nasiru says, I have started preparing my documents. I am just wondering whether to continue or stop completely.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't think there's a need to stop completely. I assume you're talking about NIW, where this is more important. EV1A is not. For EV1A, there's no big issue with national importance anyway. In NIW, I wouldn't stop things completely. You can do a lot of work, even if you want to be cautious and wait a little bit and see if you can benefit from something that they publish that could benefit your case. But there's no reason to halt all your plans.
And Lucas, I am referencing Biden's executive order on AI. Trump has just withdrawn. What should I do? Wait for some new piece of legislation, submit a petition with a withdrawn?
I mean, if this was my case, I would not submit a petition right now. I mean, if people already did it, there's no going back, okay? But if this is my petition, I'm doing it right now, and I was using a revoked executive order, and I know it's revoked, there's no point in using that executive order, in my opinion. I would look for either wait a little bit and see what Trump does. Trump was favorable to AI in his first term, so I expect him to do favorable things for AI anyway, and you could wait and see what he does. And it doesn't have to be an executive order, it could be speeches also, and you could look for speeches from the campaign and even from his previous administration, and go into the website for the federal agencies that deal with AI and see what is there, because maybe you can use things that are still there that they didn't take out, and you can still claim that the current administration is interested in this type of work.
And Golam asks, do you think pending 485 and 765 will be suffered due to freezing hiring or evaluation process?
Potentially, yes. Like I said, this is a concern I have. We'll have to see how long this hiring freeze lasts, and we'll have to see what is the impact on everything, but potentially, yes, it could.
And Jon Snow, could it have an impact on already approved applications got my approval since 2023?
And not, I don't think, I mean, I'm talking about likelihood of what I think is going to happen. I don't think it will affect the I-140 approval itself, but heightened scrutiny could impact the second part of the process, be it an adjustment of status, and especially consular processing, because in the consular processing, officers have way more discretion and their decisions are final. And we saw that during the travel ban in 2017 that affected people that were coming on a plane into the US. They got affected by the signing of that executive order, even if they had an approved immigrant visa on their passport. So yeah, I don't want to be dramatic also, okay? I want you to stay calm, but yeah, it could have some impact on that second part.
And Vishnu, is there going to be a green card for STEM graduates, RAW, plus chargeability, plus error fee denial, plus prepping new I-140, airline pilot on F1 visa?
Vishnu, I didn't understand a thing of what you said. I don't know if there is a question. You said there's going to be a green card for STEM graduates. Not that I know of. You got a denial, sorry about that. And you're preparing your new I-140, that's good. So good luck to you. But also, you know that as Indian, if you are Indian born, also make sure you understand the timeline for the EB2 category for Indian born citizens, because it is quite long.
Next is Jemmy. Now that an executive order is signed to pull out from the Paris Agreement, would this have an effect on endeavor in areas of renewable energy or decarbonization?
Well, certainly it could. It does look like climate change is not going to be a priority. I mean, but this is no surprise. I mean, I've been saying this for the last months, that priorities would change with a new administration, and especially with a change in party and with a change to Trump. We knew that climate would not be a priority. Does that mean that anyone working on climate-related issues stand no chance on an EV-28W? No. But it does mean that they will have a harder time now. because it will be a little bit harder to prove that the government initiatives align with this type of work. But there are always creative ways that you can use to defend your own case, okay? And maybe put the stress on things that align with what Trump is saying instead of focusing on things that are controversial for the new administration.
The next one is Lenny. What to do for those who have their I-140 already? Wait to enter or do it now?
Like I said, it is really your personal decision. You have to see where you are, in what shape your petition is, how the different priorities can affect your petition, what type of evidence were you using in that petition. There's no single answer for all cases, okay? You really need to look at your own case. That's what I advocate in this channel and in our courses, that it's really your responsibility and you are the expert on your case.
So Cesar says, how could you argue the unbalanced prompt while on approved H-1B? And could you extend on substantial merit for the endeavor?
I don't understand the second question. The first question, you would argue it like everyone else, being on H-1B versus F versus not being in the US at all doesn't affect the way you argue prong number 3, which is unbalanced. In that prong, there are a few factors that you can use. For example, that your contributions are in the national interest, or that your qualifications are maybe way higher than the minimum required for that type of position, or that you're working in a matter that is urgent for the nation. So it has nothing to do with your visa status, really. Could you stand on substantial merit for the endeavor? I don't really understand that, Cesar.
Next is Aman. Do you think priority days will be moving faster under Trump administration?
We already covered that. No, I don't think so.
Leaving Miami, is there any chance that Table B for adjustment of status will become effective again during this fiscal year?
I think the chance is unlikely. Chances are never zero for anything. Historically, that has not happened before. When it moves from Table B to Table A, that happens February, March, April, depending on the year. It typically doesn't go back until we get into the new fiscal year. I said the chance is never zero because they could, and that is something that could happen as a change. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen, because keep in mind, I also want to explain why. It's not all like my own personal feeling about something. The way these things work with the tables is, if they move back to Table B, more people are going to apply for adjustment of status. So the line of people, that backlog of people waiting at the doors of the USCIS or well, in this case USCIS, because of adjustment of status, would get bigger and bigger. And they want to be balancing that amount of people. Chance is not non-zero, because they could theoretically let everyone file for adjustment of status and keep people waiting. Imagine if you are an Indian in EB2, we'll keep you waiting for 20 years, but at least you can get a temporary EAD card. So theoretically, they could come up with that kind of solution, but historically, it hasn't happened.
So next is Mithilesh Kumar. Can I use same evidence for EB2 and AW prong 2, which was based off EB1A extraordinary ability on my EB1A?
Mithilesh, well, first, I know you, so I'm happy to read you. He is a course member. Well, a course member, I think, in both courses, if I'm correct. And yes, you can use overlapping evidence in two petitions like EB2NAW and EB1A, as long as you consider that, based on what you are learning in the course, for that specific criterion on EB1, the evidence you presented in EB2NAW has enough quality to be useful to fulfill that particular criterion. There's no issue with using the same evidence.
So next one is for Instagram. Concerning those in college, it is true that Trump would give green cards to those who graduated from college in the US?
Well, he certainly promised that. We actually talked about it in a video in this channel. He famously said in an interview that he would give a green card to all graduates. I think he even said community colleges. I will have to check that, but he certainly said university graduates. Now, is he going to go through with that? My perception is probably not. I hope he does. I will be here. We'll throw a special live session and we'll celebrate with you if that happens. I will be very, very, very happy. But the reality is that this person doesn't always say the truth. And again, this is a mild way of saying it. But I just show you a clip where he was signing the executive order and he was saying birthright citizenship only happens in the US, and the reality is it happens in more than 30 countries. So can you believe everything he says? That's a question for you. My personal answer, I have it clear in my head, and it's no.
And Marco asks, I'm still preparing my I-140 for EB2 NAW. How much time do you consider I have to send this before any likely major change in the process or criteria?
Well, it's the same type of question. It is really up to you. You have to look at your evidence and see, does the evidence that I have hold? Am I using enough of these laws and enough of these federal agency publications that are still there, or is still too weak with what I have? Maybe I can wait a little bit and see what he publishes. It's really on a case-by-case basis.
And Abu says, I submitted my I-140 2 weeks ago. How long will it take for USCIS to acknowledge my application and get back to me?
So it could be anywhere from very soon, immediately. It's been 2 weeks, so it could happen already, but it could extend to a few months even. And this is unfortunate, but we have been seeing this type of processing time get worse and worse under Biden, up to the point where people are having to reach them out and ask for a receipt number, because without that receipt number, you cannot do much on the USCIS website.
The next one is from Instagram. It's in Spanish. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, you can read it.
Hola, una consulta. Los mismos trabajadores de USCIS y NVC tratan todos los tipos de visas, EB1, EB2, inversionistas, refugiados, etc. Es por eso que hay tanto retraso.
No, my understanding, and again, I'm not an expert on this. I don't have eyes inside the agencies, but my understanding is that not all workers have access to all the adjudication processes. Okay, they have to undergo training, and they may spend some time doing this part of the immigration process, and then they would maybe move and do something else, but I don't think they deal with absolutely everything at the same time.
So next from Instagram as well, how will our process be affected by the new administration? What is the current wait time for I-85 approval?
So that's a very good question. I'm going to check what is the current wait times for the median times. What I like is the median times for adjustment of status, but in general, I think times could get a little bit slower for the reasons that I just told you, that they may implement higher scrutiny. One other thing that we may see very soon is that they may end the waivers for interviews. And if they do that, which they did previously, that would mean that now adjustment of status times will suddenly get worse, just because they have to call everyone in their offices and they have to interview everyone, which is not the case for NIW and EB1A right now. They waive the interviews for many people. Okay, so I'm not optimistic about processing times. All right, so I'm looking at the website right now. The current median time for employment-based adjustment of status as of, I think, December 2024 is 6.9 months. Okay, so that's a good a good idea that you can have. That means 50% of the cases are adjudicated in about 7 months. By the way, I also knew this person, I think, from the course.
From Instagram as well. Hola Oscar, ¿cómo estás? Tengo casi listo el documento. Mi proposed endeavor está enfocado en economía circular y reciclaje. Entiendo que Trump paró iniciativas hacia la energía verde.
Well, the question, I think maybe previously I forgot to translate the question in Spanish. Sorry about that. The question is asking a similar question, that this person has the I-140 petition almost finished, and the proposed endeavor is focused on circular economy and recycling, and he thinks that Trump is stopping this kind of green energy initiatives. My response is similar to the previous ones, is you have to wait and see a little bit, because even if Trump is not friendly with certain areas, for example, wind energy, he issued an executive order yesterday also putting pause on certain leases for wind energy. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be any type of activity in that area. And even if he gets out of the Paris Accord for climate, I think the government is likely to still have some activity favoring things like recycling. I mean, even when I'm pessimistic about this government, I think that we shouldn't go that far as to think they will absolutely not promote this kind of common sense initiatives.
And this one is Mascat. Hi, Oscar. I just wanted to say thank you for your help. If you remember, I got EB1 petition approved, and now just recently I had interview approved by the US consulate. Thanks, Oscar.
Wow, Mascat, you were also a course member, and thank you. First of all, congratulations, and thank you for putting this message, because it really makes our day when we read about success stories, especially when it's someone that we actually know. So interview approved at the consulate, great job, and soon you'll be in the US.
Cesar, again, if you're starting now, should you align your endeavor with Trump's order, laws, speeches, etc.?
I think it's wise, if you are starting now, that you take that approach, because Trump is here to stay 4 years. So why wouldn't you do that? You are supposed to look at the federal government for what the US is worried about in terms of solving problems, advancing areas. So looking at Donald Trump's policies is the right thing to do, even when we don't agree fully with what he does.
And Lucy, do you think that embassy decision in consular cases can be impacted by the new government?
Yeah, I think so. I think not only in consulates, I think even in USCIS, like I was saying earlier, maybe at the beginning, adjudication standards, the way officers adjudicate cases change over time. And we saw that even within Biden's presidency, the way they adjudicated NIWs was not the same 1 year ago and 4 months ago. It changed drastically, really. So even more, if the presidency changes, the leadership in the agency changes, the leadership at consulates and embassies change, the way they do things can change.
So Luis Miguel asks, my focus is on nascent energy security through emerging technologies as a software engineer. This is the only thing common to both Biden and Trump. Should I wait? I'm almost done.
Luis is another, I believe, course member. So I think energy security is a field where Trump is going to be very strong in terms of priorities. And I don't only think, I believe that if you go through the executive orders that they already published, I think there's at least one that talks about energy security, if not more. So should you wait? Again, I'm not going to tell you yes or no. I don't give that kind of definitive answers. That depends on your case and where you see yourself, what kind of evidence you already have. But that field specifically, I don't think is going to be affected that negatively.
Next one asks, did you say that those who sign up for any of your courses have the opportunity to meet one-on-one with you?
Well, not exactly. If you are in our EV2NW course, we do monthly live sessions. It's not one-on-one, it's a group session where we have a call. We currently use Google Meet, and we have a Q&A like this one, but with cameras and microphones, so we can actually talk to each other. It's way more interactive, and I will, to the best of my ability, I will try to help with questions that don't get into individualized assistance, which again we cannot provide as we are not U.S. lawyers.
And Alejandro says, now that Trump is the president, I'm in the US right now as a student, F1 visa. I want to apply for EB2NW. Do you think it's better if I go back to my country or wait here for the visa?
I cannot answer that. You're asking for really individual advice, and I don't even know your full story and your situation. Even if I did, I cannot provide that kind of help. You will need to talk with a lawyer and show them everything, put everything on the table, and let them advise you, which is what you're asking for.
Gladshares, is it a good idea to upgrade a pending I-140 now to premium processing?
It depends. If you really want a decision soon and you don't want to, especially if you had a lot of evidence from Biden and you don't want your case to be sitting there for 1 year and wonder what is going to happen when they get to it, maybe it's a good idea. But as you know, if you are in EB2, it will not speed up your overall process. It will only speed up your I-140 step, okay?
Saklash, in the process of replying to an RFE on AI Endeavor with an attorney, is there anything that I need to be careful about?
I think the number one thing is to have good, what they call now independent evidence, which is what I always called hard evidence, meaning having evidence that speaks by itself. Then you can use letters to strengthen your case and to validate certain claims, but you need independent external evidence from things that are tangible, be it awards, certificates, executive orders if we are talking about NAW or laws, things that you are providing that are not your word only.
And Faisal asks, I have an approved I-140 EB2NW RAW with a PD of 23 of August 2023. Does it make sense to file an EB1, which is current for RAW?
I mean, if you have a decent case for EB1, you can give it a try and try to speed it up. Does it make sense? You have to tell me, what is your situation? What is your visa status? How much of a hurry are you in? You know, there's a lot of personal components there that need to be taken into consideration.
Jax Espinosa.
We're going to take a couple and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, he wants to book with your vision.
Yeah. So if you are part of our course, then you have the information in one of the last modules. We are only taking course members for this type of editorial review of a petition right now.
Gladys asks, were there any updates to the NAW course? I have watched the first few videos and some are still talking about 2023. Well,
we update the course regularly, but what we don't do is we don't update videos just for the sake, well, actually we do update videos just for the sake of updating them sometimes to make them look better, but we are not in a rush of updating something that still works. And yeah, maybe in some video I said 2023, or maybe now it's going to happen more and more. Maybe in a video I'm talking about national importance and I show the White House website and Biden shows up. Now, am I in a hurry to go and change that video? No, because it would be a cosmetic change. Because what matters is what we teach. It's a process, is what kind of evidence you need, what kind of argument you need to put together. It doesn't matter if on the screen you see the face of Biden or Trump, as long as I'm teaching you the right way of doing things. Our courses are not something that you can just take material, copy, paste it, and use it. We teach a process. So you should be on board with that idea when you sign up, because it's a do-it-yourself process. So don't worry if we talk about 2023, 2024. If it's still there, it means that it still applies.
So this asks about the course as well. Will your course and ebooks get revised, updated once the USCIS implements the policy updates to the USCIS policy manual announced in January?
So we talked about this both in the course, in the live session, and also here in YouTube. We are not making any immediate change based on that policy manual update, because as I explained in YouTube, there's really no change to it. The slight changes that were put there are talking about things that we already had in the course and in our YouTube videos. Things like, hey, don't talk about labor shortage when you are in prong number 3, or for that matter, anywhere in the petition. Careful with teaching endeavors. You need to have independent hard evidence in your petition, and don't rely only on your word. Those things we already had. So in a way, USCIS is going slower than us. We were already teaching that kind of methodology. So no, we are not immediately changing anything. But I can tell you that we do a lot of updates in the course, and maybe a course member can chime in. In each monthly session, we actually go and report what changes we have made to the course. For example, if a form changes a lot, we go and we update that material. Or if we see that adjudication trends change, we go and make a special lesson about how to write a specific chapter of the petition. We don't hesitate in putting work when work is needed. But like I said earlier, we're not just going to update videos where there's no change. So I was talking with Marina actually earlier, and I was saying, well, maybe USCIS is going to change a lot of forms now, because Trump said yesterday, and I think it's on an executive order, that from now on there's only 2 genders in the US, male and female. Until now, all the forms had male, female, and non-binary. And would we update the form video for a particular form that has that 2 or 3 options, depending on Trump or Biden? No, because I mean, if that's the only change, we are not going to bother on that kind of update. But if there is something important, you can bet that I'm going to rush and put the effort on making a new video, doing it in English, in Spanish, in Portuguese, putting the subtitles. Marina will be for sure working with me on that, and we are going to do our best to always have the best do-it-yourself resources for all of you. Okay, we're not going to be lazy about that. Are we done?
There's some more.
Yeah, well, no, that was a rhetoric question. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to finish by thanking you for being here, for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please click on that button. It helps us a lot. And good luck. Remain calm. Try to be analytical about the news that you read about with Trump and with the new administration. We're going to do our best of updating you on the most pressing issues. And also thank you to Marina for helping today, and always with this great initiative that we have here. So thank you, and see you next time.